To say hello, Jan. Mind you, I've said hello to everybody anyway by now. But...
Well, I've let the last few people in, and so if anyone else appears, I'll just
let them catch up. They can catch up.
They can catch up.
Okay, well, welcome to the 12th running of the Housted Twin Towns competition. It's really great to see so many people. We've got more people on Zoom than we actually had physically in the church last year, so fantastic. I'd like to start off by welcoming Angela Kilmartin, who's chairman of the Braintree District Council. Very warm welcome to you, and to Nick Cope, who's mayor of Colchester. You will be joined by the mayor of Housted at some point in the evening, but he's actually at a council meeting at the moment, so he'll be coming along way later. But welcome to all of you. Welcome also to all our friends from Colchester and Braintree. I mean, I think there's far more of you lot than there is of Housted, but that's fine. And also, welcome to all our friends from France. Bienvenue. I don't speak French, so you'll have to apologise. I have to apologise on that, but you're very, very welcome. It is great to see you. Und wir haben wie viele von Deutschland? In Deutschland? 3 Personen?
3 mindestens.
4 mindestens.
4.
Oh, ausgezeichnet.
Herzlich willkommen. Who is Anna?
Okay, also welcome to our members from Housted and to all our guests. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start by just saying one housekeeping point, and then I'll talk you through how we're hoping the evening is going to run. The housekeeping point is once I hand over to Naomi, our judge, I'd like you all to stop your video. The reason for that is that we are recording this to go onto YouTube, and it's actually streaming live on YouTube at the moment. And when we record this, when we're looking at the pictures, because our pictures are all moving, it downgrades the images and uses up a lot of data within Zoom. So once we start, if you can do that, please, I'd be grateful. Okay, so in a minute, I'll hand you over to Naomi. But to start with, I'd just like to tell you how it's going to run. We'll start off by doing a quick run through of everything in the competition. That's not including the tiebreakers. So that's 66 images. We'll go through them fairly quickly. Naomi will then take us through the images one at a time and give them a critique. She will mark them out of 20, although she may decide that if it's one of the pictures that may get a higher score, she might look at it at the end, so she will hold some of them back. Around about the halfway point, we will have a 10-minute interval. And this is to allow us to take our eyes away from the screen for a few. And normally we would be having tea and coffee and it would be half an hour and we'd be having drinks and nibbles. But because we can't do that, it's all self-catering. So what we'll do is just have a 10-minute break. We can look away from the screen and we can go and do important things like fill up the wine glass. Once we start again, we'll finish going through all the images. Once Naomi has finished doing all the critiques on all the images, she will mark the final images, the one she held back. Then we will have the final scores. Before we announce the scores, Naomi will look through all the images that scored the perfect 10 so she can pick her favourite of the evening. Then we will give the scores. If there's a tie-break between 1 and 2, and maybe however many people get top score, we will then use the 12th image that you've all submitted for Naomi to pick her favourite of the 3 to provide the answer for the winner. At this point, when we've got the answers, I will invite you all to restart your videos. And then if anybody would like to say a few words, you're more than welcome to do so. And because you need to do it one at a time, don't unmute yourselves. Just let me know that you want to talk and I will invite you up to speak one at a time. There's no compulsion. You don't have to do it. Just if you want to say something, that's fine. At the end, when everybody's finished speaking, I will hand you over to Steve Thompson, our vice chair, who will say a few words of thanks to our judge, and then he will close the meeting. So that's how we're hoping it will run. Fingers crossed that we don't have any power cuts. I said I had 5 power cuts last night. Anyway, it is now my privilege and pleasure to introduce our judge for the evening, Naomi Saul, and she has these letters after her name: ARPS, EFIAP, DPAGB, APAGB, ASINWP. As you can tell from the number of distinctions she has, she's a very gifted and very experienced photographer. She is also a very gifted and very experienced judge, and we are delighted that she has agreed to judge for us this evening. We're especially pleased that she's also agreed to do this in as live an environment as we can achieve at the current time. So on behalf of us all, welcome Naomi. I'm now, for everybody's pleasure, going to mute myself. So if you wouldn't mind turning off your videos as well at this point, switching off your video.
You want me to turn my video off as well, Jill?
I wouldn't, Naomi. I'm leaving mine on. I think you should leave yours on.
Okay.
Unless someone corrects me otherwise.
I'm happy to do it. It doesn't make any difference.
Yeah, no.
Okay. Are you all ready for me?
We're all ready for you.
Good evening, everybody. Sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. Do you want to say a few words first before we? I'll start off with a slideshow run through of all the slides. But if you want to say a few words first, then that'd be great.
Well, only just it's good to be with you all tonight, even if it's remotely. Zoom has been a wonderful tool to allow us to get somewhat together rather than cancel everything. So yeah, let battle begin.
Chairman, are we supposed to be seeing anything at this point? Because I'm not.
Yes.
Sorry?
You should be.
Who's not seeing something? We're seeing the run through of all the images.
Nothing.
No.
I'm getting them.
No, nothing
Yeah,
coming.
I'm getting them.
I know. I don't know what it is.
We can see him at Braintree.
Bill, can you get rid of that red mark?
Not without rebooting my machine, I suspect. So I'll have to do something about it at the interval. I have no idea what it is or why it's there. So apologies for that. I don't know. I haven't used a marker.
Whoever it was who couldn't see, can they see now?
Yes, can see.
No, I have no images on my screen.
That's
Only
Angela.
people.
That's Angela.
Yes, only people is what I see.
Right.
Angela, you maybe need to close that window down. You maybe need to move it across. Can you move the window across?
Mine?
If you take your cursor and try and move it, it may be that you've got something over the top of the pictures.
Or minimize
the screen.
Minimize the screen with all the people's pictures.
I've got 4 people. There are no presentations happening. How many people have got presentations in front of them?
I have.
I have.
Yes, yes.
I have.
Yeah.
Yep, I have.
Yeah.
I can see it.
Yeah.
Perhaps we should just say.
We have as well.
I was going to say, perhaps we should just say, can anyone who can't see shout? Because it would only have
gone.
Pardon?
The red marker's gone.
Yeah, I've got that sorted.
And we only appear to have Angela who can't see the images.
Oh, well, carry on then.
What's Angela watching on?
If you drop out and try and come in again, I don't know if that would help, and I'll let you in again.
Yep.
Yeah, leave the meeting and rejoin. I think it's probably the best thing to try.
What's Angela using? iPad?
Yes.
Yeah, well, have you done minus on your pictures of the people?
Don't worry about me. You carry on with everything.
Okay,
okay. Carry on with everything.
Okay.
Please carry on. Don't wait for me.
Yeah, it's still rolling, Angela. Yeah.
Sorry?
The images are still rolling for those of us who can see them.
Don't worry. Don't worry about me.
Okay, so that's the run through of all the images. So we'll kick off now with the first image. To see, hopefully. There we go. A favourite stick.
I thought this was a lovely macro shot of the dragonfly. I think it might be a darter. There's a good depth of field on the insect itself. You can see lots of detail on the body as well as the eyes. Not quite so sharp on the body as indeed the edge of the wings. So I think the focus point was just a little bit to the left, but the background is well out of focus. And I thought this was very much worth 16 points.
An A in yellow.
A very natural pose for this young lady, whose top matches the wall exactly. I don't know which way round it was done, but if you had to paint the wall to match her top, well done. It certainly works. Her expression is interesting, and there's a real life, fun and sparkle in her lovely brown eyes. We've lost a little bit of detail in the shadow area of her hair, perhaps a little too close to the wall because we've got a little bit of shadow. But all in all, I enjoyed the picture, and I'm sure it's one that she will be very happy with too. 17.
Asparagus and Fish.
It looks as though the photographers going to have a good meal after taking this picture. It's interesting to have two fish and the asparagus. I wasn't quite sure of the normal link. It's quite an unusual combination. I tend to think of fishes and loaves, I suppose, and in the normal way. The light appears to be coming from the right-hand side, so we've got quite a little bit of shadow, but there's good detail in the fish themselves and indeed on the asparagus, possibly more detail on the asparagus than there is on the fish themselves. But they don't look as though they've been around for too long. Their eyes look fresh, so that's good. I did find I had a little bit of a problem understanding the story, and I would like the fish themselves to have just that little bit more brightness in the monochrome. So I think perhaps on the conversion we could have done a little bit more with these. This one scored 14.
Le Choix.
I really enjoyed the feeling of this doll's house cottage dwarfed against the crags. It's a really unusual picture. And the strange shadow looks almost like a cat against the left-hand chimney, just peeping around the left-hand chimney. But it would be a very big cat if that was the case. The wall in front of the house looks quite flimsy against all of those rocks. So there's a really good story. I like the very dark sky that we have here. That shows up the house itself well. And the little bit of reflection also adds to this image. There's a good 3D feel about it. It's beautifully sharp. and very, very dwarfed, I have to say, in this scene. 17.
Fox.
Sorry, I'm just getting the order here. A very much a family picture, I felt, with this one, from the family album maybe, and one to be proud of for that too. I like the expression on the youngster's face and the way her toes are gripped, that feeling of surprise in whatever's going on. Possibly it was the flash with which the picture was taken. I'm not really sure that's what the message is of the boxing gloves. That's confused me a little bit there, but the focus is very crisp on them, that's for certain. I think we see a picture of the youngster on her own a bit later. Perhaps this one, although to be treasured, is not really a competitive battle picture. So regrettably, this one scored 14.
Boot to snoot.
I love this this idea here. It was using a very narrow depth of field, and only the end of the nose really is sharp, and yet it gives us a complete picture of the animal in our imaginations of the animal behind. There's a lovely range of tones, and I thought it was doing something very different. It's a shame that the light is catching the right nostril quite as strongly as it is. But I liked the fact that it was different, that it had this very narrow depth of field, very intentionally, and it made quite a different picture. So I enjoyed the simplicity. 17.
Blazing saddles.
Quite an event to witness. And I really applaud the photographer for catching the fire and smoke from the, well, I'm assuming they're very large guns that they're holding. So well done for actually catching that fire. I found the sky really rather bright, and it does take the eye away a bit, but I can also understand why the photographer kept some of it in, because to crop it down can lose a little bit too much of the fire itself. Having said that, because it takes my eye away from the main event, and I really like the action that's going on there, I think I would have cropped the top down to the top of the pink building on the right, which doesn't take all of the bright sky away, but it does reduce it quite considerably and still keeps some detail in that fire. I was intrigued by the action of the riders because they're all holding their guns. It looks as though one or two of them are holding the reins, but most of them appear to be moving quite fast without holding anything to guide the horses, and still staying on. I don't know they all did, hopefully they did, but certainly at this point they have done. 16.
Bonelli eagle, unhappy, about a magpie.
I thought this was an interesting wildlife interaction. Sorry, yeah. And I thought it gave a wonderful sense of scale between the two birds. I can't help wondering what the magpie is thinking. I liked the way it's looking up at the eagle as if to say, you don't worry me. But I do wonder whether, in fact, the eagle has found the magpie's nest, or maybe the other way around. There's certainly a bulging crop, or beginnings of a bulging crop on the eagle, so maybe it has found the eagle's nest. Who knows? But there's beautiful feather detail on the eagle itself, and I like the sheen of its feathers as well. That's that lovely light sheen on the white feathers that shows up really well here. It's dark under the tail, but I don't have any problem with that. There's a good sense of depth of field, so that the background is completely out of focus, allowing both the birds to show up very well. It's even possible to see details in the eye and the mouth of the eagle. Now you can actually see detail in the pupil of the eye. 18.
Boy.
I thought this was a really very lovely study of this child in reenactment dress, an absolute purity and clarity about the eyes, and an innocence as well, which all is coming over from this picture. We have lovely soft skin, as it should be, of course, at this age, and his freckles across his nose show up really well. And then the background is completely out of focus, so he's shielded by the brim of that wonderful hat that all adds to the picture. The skin tones are absolutely stunning, and this is a picture I'm going to hold back, please.
Lady de Conche.
This picture really shouts lockdown to me. So I thought it does give that feeling, a certain amount of imprisonment, as we've all felt over the past few months. Beyond it, I see a hint of better things, the chance to go out and enjoy ourselves perhaps a little more than we've been able to. But sadly, in this picture, I can't reach them. So it's giving me that feeling of this confinement that we have in lockdown. As an image, although it's well exposed, I find the wicket fence doesn't allow my eye to enjoy the scene fully. If the message was about CV and its barriers, then it certainly fits. But in this competition, I'm struggling to understand what the photographer, and I believe the title is simply a place. So I don't quite know what the photographer was trying to give me. If it was about lockdown, then it certainly succeeded. But without knowing quite what it was the reason, it's 13.
Broom Martinel.
The photographer has coped really well here with the tonal range through this image, with detail in the green foreground, leading us through to the misty light area over the water. My eye is naturally drawn to the light areas, and I feel the composition might be strengthened if we lost a little bit of the left-hand side and the right-hand side of this image. In other words, make it either a square or even into a portrait format, because then my eye actually runs along the water edge or this little rivulet of water into that lovely misty scene. And although we will have lost a little bit from the sides, it doesn't really take anything away from the story. So I think the picture might have had just a wee bit more impact if we'd have had a little bit less on the overall image. But this one scored 15. It was lovely detail in both that light area and the dark area.
Downhill.
This picture gave me a feeling of great speed, and of course entitled Downhill, so that adds to it. I liked the angle that suggests it's a real fast downhill action. And we can see all of the rider, strangely enough, in all that marking. I think perhaps those lines, however, are a little bit obstructive of the whole image. I would have liked the pan to have at least kept the rider completely sharp, but I think it does work. It works in this relatively simple form, and I think monochrome has probably added to this image because it would probably be very busy if we had a coloured one. and that's another 15.
Car rally stage.
Lovely dust being thrown up here all around the image, and I think the photographer has coped with that really well. We've got a little bit of room for it to move into, and it looks to be a fairly brave picture as well. I'm not quite sure where the photographer was, but they look to be right in line with the car, which is no doubt going at speed because of all that dust. I like the tree canopy around the dust, and the car is really good and sharp. It's a slight shame about the strong highlight on the screen. It does grab my eye, and I think that could have probably been toned down quite seriously in the post-processing and that would also darken the highlights in the foreground, but still give us that sense of light and shade. But I still thought that it was really well taken, and I gave it 17.
Cool Hand Luke.
Fabulous action caught here by the photographer. Shutters pressed at absolutely the right moment. I'm guessing it's one from a series of pictures, otherwise the photographer really got the timing absolutely perfectly. I like the water droplets behind, which are presumably coming from their hair and sweat, but I'm not quite sure where they're coming from, but they certainly add to this particular image. And that's because of the spotlight as well. So the spotlight works really well on the figures. I think the light is a little bit bright on Cool Hand Luke himself, but then he is the center of the picture. I would have liked that one toned down just a fraction, and maybe a little bit on the back of the other, of Tristan, I'm assuming his name is, but anyway. And just a little bit more brought out of his face, but it's still an excellent image. I would have also toned down those bright areas, those two little spots on the top left and the cross of the gantry. But I am going to hold this one back, please.
Coffee time.
Well, a very carefully thought out still life picture that works in every detail. The mug and the plate shape are really superb, and they're lit to enhance those curves as well. A careful reflection, not overpowering, just enough detail. Beautiful red spoon suspended there, and the coffee beans dropping out into the cup, going from full bean through to the powder as it goes into the coffee cup. And we can see the water as it is being made coffee as well. So lots and lots of detail. I also enjoyed that tiny red line that just outlines this picture beautifully and adds to it. So it gives us a definition, but doesn't take over, which red could so easily do. So this is another one that I'm holding back, please.
Be on time.
This is a very famous place to photograph, and I was lucky enough to be able to see this clock in action actually for quite a while as I waited in this airport not too long ago, in the days when travel was, of course, simpler. It works very well as a monochrome image, and the exposure has been really well handled. I didn't notice when I saw this the lights in the roof, and I did feel that perhaps we have a little bit too much there, taking the eye. The picture is almost half and half, so I would have been tempted to crop that down a little bit, not completely, maybe to half of that ceiling area. But overall, I thought it worked really well in monochrome, and that the photographer had coped with the tones of the aeroplanes behind. So cropping it down would lose that very light area at the very top, that one particular light that's over bright perhaps, and I would have just toned down the rest that are left in the image, so that we have just a foil to the scene that I think was what you really wanted us to look at. But it's well done, and monochrome really works for it. That one was 15.
Broom sur le lac.
What amazing colour we have in these trees, and with the added bonus of the mist on the lake below and the reflection. Having mentioned the other tree picture, which I felt needed to be cropped down, this one is quite the opposite, and the photographer has used this portrait format, which probably works. I don't know what was either side, and maybe a landscape wouldn't have worked, but I also think maybe it would have done, who knows. But the presentation shows all the colours. I'm not quite sure what's happened to the sky. Those clouds up in the sky do look slightly over-processed or something, but the colours are what this picture was all about for me, and I did enjoy them. 16.
Dreaming of the sea.
A beautiful, simple, bright landscape with limited tones. And it's those limited tones that really work for me in this image. Yes, it's half and half. Break the rules if it works, and this one certainly does for me. Those streaky clouds across the top really work. I like the shapes that are in the water area of the sand, and the fact that it's darkened a little bit to the right-hand side. That slight movement streaking across adds to the simplicity, and it's wonderful that something can work when you break all the rules, but you have to know how to break them, and this photographer certainly does. So that's another one to be kept back, please.
Cheetah at dinner.
I enjoy wildlife safaris, as many of you will know, and I can well understand the photographer's excitement when this scene was discovered. Whilst I enjoy seeing the cheetah so close up with its feast, I think perhaps it's been cropped in from an original image, or maybe given a painterly effect, which I find is a little bit distracting. If it's an effect that's been created for this image, then that doesn't, for me, work particularly well with nature. And I'm a little bit concerned that the shadow areas, the grey areas, have gone this cyan colour that really doesn't quite work for me. But it was really exciting. I'm sure you enjoyed it, and I would have enjoyed watching this and seeing the cheetah there so closely. I don't know whether the cheetah is has a collar. I think it might have. It's got something strange under its neck, or it looks slightly strange in this picture under its neck. So great place to be, great time to actually see the cheetah. I love the fact that I can see that almost wistful look. I don't know why it's looking wistful, because it's got a really good feed there, but anyway, the treatment for me didn't quite work on it. It's beginning to feel it's lost quite a lot of detail that I would really have rather seen. So 13.
Head down from dust and stones.
What an uncomfortable ride it is for the passenger in these sidecars. The photographer has bravely used the dust to really good advantage. And I hope the camera survived it all. It's not only dust, but big chunks of mud and so on being thrown up. But the detail is all there. The exposure is good overall. And in that strong sunlight, we could have lost a lot more detail than there is. There's only a slight patch on that helmet, the rider himself, that we've lost, and that doesn't worry me at all. What I do think is wonderful is the fact that I can see the rider's eyes behind that visor. So all of that detail is there, and the concentration that is on his face. Wondering if they're going to survive, I'm sure. So that one got 18.
GM under ice.
Wow, what a beautiful colour. That's really been enhanced in this image. I think perhaps the photographer has given it some sort of gradient across the corner ways from the grey on the top to an orangey colour below, which has actually enhanced the red of the GM itself, and I think works particularly well. It's very sharp. I love all that detail in the grey and the streaking white areas in the centre of the GM, and yet you can see all of the petal detail, added to which there are, of course, the little pockets of air in the ice that I think really worked well. It's a simple, not a simple action because you've got to get it right in the first place, but a simple rendering of this flower that has really added to its beauty by the way it's been controlled. And that is another one I'm holding back.
Bell down 2.
Lovely detail on what we would know as a painted lady butterfly, and perhaps that's what beldam, what probably is what beldam means in the title there. I enjoy the detail and the green iridescence on the body. That's showing up really well. You can see all the fur, you can see all the texture of the dust on the wings because they are dusty, and the flower that it's settled on is sharp too. Background's good, soft, out of focus, and taken to best advantage. So that one scored 17.
Cailleur.
Good undulating chalk cliffs. I don't know whether this is what we would know as the White Cliffs of Dover, or whether it's the opposite side of the channel, that there is something very similar. It doesn't matter, the detail is there. I particularly enjoyed the colours in the water. It's very muted day, slight mist, and the detail is all there. So I liked the muted colours. But I did feel there was just too much of that sky, which, although it's got some streaky white clouds in it, really isn't very interesting. So I would have been inclined to give this one a real landscape crop, a letterbox crop, in fact, to just below those clouds in the sky, and to lose the little bit of grass in the foreground, including the tuft that is just in the middle of the sea. But the muted tones work. That one scored 13.
European bee-eater catching prey.
Sorry, I'm just scrolling around here. Wonderfully colourful birds, and they're constantly moving. For those who haven't been privileged enough to see them, they just don't sit still. They are looking all the time for their prey, the insects that are flying around above them, and the photographer has caught this moment so well. There's lovely detail in the eye, lovely detail in the feathers. They're beautiful colours, and all of those colours are showing up really well. And then there's the added bonus of the insect. To start with, I thought it was actually impaled on its beak, and I could imagine it having a great time trying to get that out, but I don't think it is. I think it's just caught in the act, as it were, and there's detail in that as well. I like the simplicity. Yes, it's a bird on a stick, but it is natural. That's the sort of thing that they do land on, and just that inclusion on the left-hand side of a few leaves, I think really made the picture. Background completely out of focus. So whilst the photographer has had to think on the spot to get this, they've got the whole picture really well done. And that's another one I'm holding back.
Emma.
An extremely close crop onto Emma's face. I liked the red gauze that was going around it, and I think the exposure really enhances that texture, the feel of the texture there. But it's not very kind on Emma's face and Emma's skin. Now, I hope I'm not offending her by saying this, but I think the photographer hasn't perhaps made the best for her of that. But her eyes are beautiful. I think we've probably gone in close to make the most of her eyes. And there is quite a lot of detail in there, a little bit dark on the top, but you can see the texture of the pupils. Catching a little bit too much light for me in a portrait session on the forehead and down the nose and across that side of the face. So I think the lighting is just a little bit unkind, but I like the idea of that lovely red gauze around. And of course, that's adding to the whole picture in terms of colour. 16.
Late November in Podswood.
Beautiful warm autumn light. And here it's been used to absolutely full advantage by the photographer. There's a tatty old fence. Looks like old chicken wire rather than the type of fence we might see. And most of the time we probably wouldn't like that in our picture, but I think here the photographer has made really good use of the lighting to enhance that fence. And for me, that fence also makes this picture because of its nature and the way the light is reflecting on it. Lovely colours on the trees themselves, and we're led down to that right hand side along the fence. It is a shame there's a branch across in the foreground, but it isn't detracting from the picture. We can still get through it. I might have been tempted to try and move it, but who knows, it's probably a frosty morning and that may have destroyed the rest of the scene. I found the light on the leaves at the bottom right just a little bit bright. Beautiful through the rest of the image, that's where we need the light, but I would have been inclined to just tone that down a fraction. But nevertheless, love that outline rim, particularly on the that bent tree, the second one in, and it's been used to really good advantage. 18.
Ha ha, said the clown.
I found this a bit scary, and a real dramatic Jack-in-the-Box type clown. Rather than having a kindly, sad face as most of them have, this one has got red eyes and a sinister, ominous mouth and teeth. So it really gives a complete transformation to what we might normally see as a friendly clown or even a sad clown. I thought it was good use of lighting and exposure that not only shows the features well, but also gives smoothness and texture to the silky neck covering. Those two colours, I think, really add to it. And I actually like the way the light is catching the spring underneath as well. The narrow edge border was needed here to contain the image and has been done well. And I gave this one 17.
Dragonfly.
Well caught moment of this mating pair, and as they were otherwise engaged, they stayed still enough for the photographer to actually get the picture and make sure that their bodies are really, really sharp. I like the way the head of the female, I believe, on the top there, the red, certainly the red body one is just protruding from between the wings. That's absolutely sharp, that head. and as indeed are the legs that are underneath it. And then the mating dragonfly has all those barbs showing up well on its legs. And there's lovely detail in the wings as well. It's an unusual pink background. I have no idea what that was, but I suspect these two had landed on stones rather than anywhere else and were totally preoccupied. 17.
Chant d'hiver.
I love the atmosphere and the mist in this picture, and that rather ominous circle of birds that are within the middle background. I think this in the foreground is probably an old tree stump, but it feels to me like a headstone, totally out of context, of course, a really old headstone at that, and that's probably because of its shape. I like the way we go into the background, and those tracks on the left-hand side are leading us really into the picture, and then we come back and enjoy the mist on the rest of it. I felt there was a little bit heavy vignetting on the top corners, and I might have been tempted to just lose a little bit. Maybe that's because on the right-hand side there is an area that is almost totally overexposed. There isn't any detail there, and I think that's perhaps was the rising sun, which we need in the picture. So I might have toned that down a fraction, but I liked the angle that is caused by that foreground tree stump or memorial as I see it, and the way we're led through the picture. And I think the birds really work within the image. That was 17.
Great egret frozen in midair.
Another picture which has a really simple range of tones. It's really grey, white, and the light coming through the wings. And for me, it is that light that is so important here. I don't really need to see any more detail on the body, on the face, or indeed on the beak, but there is just enough detail. I like the way that light is just rim lighting the head and neck, and showing every little bit, even the veins in the feathers are showing up well. And then it's lighting the edge of the legs, so it's giving us a rim light throughout. A fairly artistic picture, one that maybe is looking, I'm looking at it from a pictorial point of view, and I think for that it works. And amazingly, we have that grey sky behind, which is really quite a dull sky, but actually allows us to enjoy the bird. And in the normal way, I would say that area at the base, which I'm assuming is water or sea, is too bright, but it isn't in this image. And I think the photographer has really controlled that well, taken the details down, simplified the image, and given us something that I could look at for a very long time. And then there's that added bonus that that light behind is also showing up the crack in the beak, as that beak is parted just a little bit. So this is another one that I've held back.
Erythronium.
I won't ask you to say that again, but lovely backlight on these balloons, and I really enjoyed the shapes and the angles that have been created. That backlighting has allowed us to almost see through the petals and yet still keep detail. I liked the angle. I think that worked really well. I found the lower flower a little bit cramped in the base, and I found that I was jumping between the two. I'm not at all bothered the fact that it is only two. I wouldn't have wanted to see three in the picture, but I just felt that it was a little bit uncomfortable down on the lower part. And I think on the original, I don't think we're seeing, or I'm not seeing quite the whole amount on the frame here. That's probably because I've got band at the bottom, but anyway, I think I remember that the stems just do drop down over the edge of the frame. But I found 2 were just a little bit uncomfortable for me. It just looked a bit crowded at the base, but beautifully beautifully lit, and a really good detail behind. And I still gave it 18. I liked that single green line as well, which was complementary to the rest of the image.
Let me out.
I had to smile at this one. I thought it was a little bit of fun. Every picture tells a story, and this one is no exception. Superb detail on this well-groomed pig. Every hair shows up well, as does that right eye with its fine eyelashes. All of that showing up extremely well. I was intrigued by the mouth. I couldn't quite work out whether it was chewing something or whether, in fact, that is one of its teeth. But is it a tusky tooth? I'm not sure. But it's beautiful detail, and another one that I've held back.
Outside the Kew Palm House.
Creative composition of leaf shapes and colours that looks to be seen through a web-like texture too. I'm guessing it's not. I'm guessing it's been seen through the glass by the title of this image. So I think it's a sort of picture that perhaps only a photographer would see. The general public would walk past it and not really notice it. I do find it a little bit, I would say a little bit of a jumble. There's a lot going on there on all those leaves, and they have lovely detail in them. But my eye struggles to settle anywhere. And if anything, it settles on the slightly demure purpley leaf because it's different. So I think that composite part of the composition hasn't quite worked, but I do like the creative seeing. I found the light on those leaves to the left a wee bit bright. I think they could have been toned down, and that might have helped because they, being almost the brightest part in the frame, they do tend to take my eye out of the picture a little bit. That was 16.
In the middle of the bay.
Another really graphic image using this really simple tonal range. It's almost high key, but yet it isn't because we have some really dark black areas in it. But I think the combination of those two almost soot and whitewash ideas really works again for this image. Makes it quite simple, makes us look at it. And then I looked at all the figures. Well, I think it's very important to have that very unusually shaped mound in the background, which actually is probably quite tall looking at the figures. But we have no idea of that sense of scale, except looking at the figures themselves. And then I looked at all these people and I thought, why on earth would you walk across that water? What are they doing? They're all really well separated. Some of them are holding hands. All of that has been captured by the photographer. And there really is hardly any overlapping of the figures themselves. So I thought it worked really well. It's a graphic image that works well in monochrome, and I gave that one a score of 18.
Chouette Chevesh.
I think that this is a little owl. I don't know what the translation is there in the title, but I think it is a little owl. It's certainly apparently looking downwards. I don't know whether it's about to jump off that or fly off that, should I say, really, off that twig, or whether it is actually already away from the twig itself and going towards its prey at the ground. There's really good detail in the bird, in those feathers. I think all of that shows up really well. And it's a little bit difficult to work out where the head is, except the fact that we have that wonderful eye, which showing up really sharp. I was a little bit concerned about the branch or old tree trunk that it's on. I think that this one might have worked better if we'd have lost all of that busy area on the trunk at the top, which again is light. My eye goes up there, and I really don't want to have to drag it back down to enjoy the owl itself. So I would have been inclined to tone that trunk down. If it had been all like it is underneath at the base of the picture, I think it would have been stronger. But I liked the idea, and pictures don't always work. Monochrome doesn't always work for nature, and I did think this one worked quite well. I liked that soft background and the dark area beyond. So it was just really the cropping that I found that light area of the top of the trunk very distracting, and it kept taking my eye away from what I really wanted to look at. But there's really good feather detail. 16.
I will take care of you.
I found this one again a very simple picture with negative space, and I also found that really quite powerful. We don't need to see any faces. The detail in the back of the heads and the hair says it all. But then there is that comforting arm around the shoulders to give full reassurance. I like the fact that the colours here still remain, but have been well desaturated. So there's only a hint of coloured tone there, a little bit of blue in the gentleman's top, and perhaps a little bit of pink on the lady. And I think all of that works. They are absolutely in the right place. It tells a really powerful story that once again speaks to me of lockdown and the loneliness and difficult times that it has brought to many people. 18.
Lone tree and shadows.
Well, it's not quite a lone tree. We do have quite a lot of other trees in the background here, and but it's really good tracery. I think all of these sorts of pictures need to be taken when there is no leaves on the trees, so that we can actually enjoy the shapes of the branches and the twiglets and so on. I don't know whether it was possible for the photographer to move a little bit to the left, because I'm finding the fact that those left-hand branches are just catching those trees behind a little bit confining, and then there's lots of space to the right. We can see quite a long way into the distance where there are some more lone trees, and all of that I thought could have just, if it was possible to move a little to the left. And it doesn't look as though there are any shadows or any reason why in the foreground you couldn't actually step to the left a little bit, but who knows fully. The shadow area in the foreground leads us into the picture, but I did feel again it's a half and half, and I'm not sure that it's a strong enough half to keep it 50% of the picture. So I might have been inclined to lose a little bit of that, as say move around to the left a bit to strengthen the composition a little bit. Good slight darkening to the sky. So I found that worked really well, but a little bit more walking may have been able to give this more strength. So this one was 14.
Morning flight.
Very atmospheric lighting as this sun rises and burns through this really heavy mist, and it bathes the water in a misty glow, lovely pinkness to that water. And I think the composition here is really strong. I think those bulrushes in the foreground were really important. And then the added bonus was those, well, I guess it's geese, but the birds flying through the picture as well. just enough room for them to fly into, and really well grouped so that there's only two that are overlapping in the foreground, or on the left hand side, should I say. And I think this picture has really lovely atmosphere. It's dark, yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I think the photographer has kept the sun in really well, without burning their eye, hopefully. And there's a great atmosphere here. 18.
Primate Contemplation.
It's a really thoughtful look. And this is another picture that works well in monochrome. We love chimps, don't we? They're always appealing. And we can't help but put human thoughts in their minds, I think. And as I look at this one, I wonder what it's thinking. What came to my mind was perhaps I need to clean under my nails or wash my hands a little bit more. I like the way the head is surrounded by the forelimbs and the well-groomed and lit hair. The light is a little bit bright on the face, and also on that right hand. So I think perhaps we again need to control that lighting just a tad, take it down a little bit, perhaps brighten up the eyes. I'm sure there's enough detail to be able to post-process that and make the most of the image. And the other thing I would have done is just darkened the edge of the ears well, so that it's not taking our eye out. But lovely detail in the textures of the skin, and I think it does work as a monochrome image. 16.
This will be the last one before the interval. It's Justine 2.
It was a lovely natural look to Justine. She stood on what I assume is the step of a train. And perhaps it's the goods van, I don't know, but don't seem to be many windows in it. So I wasn't absolutely sure, but I think it probably is a train of some sort, or a carriage of some sort, shall I say. I found her, the detail that she's got in her dress, which actually looks to be a leather dress. I think that's working well. You've got all the textures there. And the top left-hand corner, it's just a little bit bright above the carriage, but not enough to take us away from her eyes. I like the way her hair was just, as it were, blowing in a slight breeze, perhaps, and also the way her hand was against the carriage itself. I did wonder why the photographer kept a little bit of thigh in underneath the dress at the base of the picture. I would have cropped it off because I find I don't want to look at that. I want to look at her, and there is plenty of detail in her, so we didn't need that little bit. But still well controlled balance between detail in the blacks, her skin tones, and also in that light sky beyond. 17.
Okay, so that's the last one. We will now take an interval, as on the screen, and so we've got Naomi back.
Yes,
just to let you know that I can see and hear everything and see all the beautiful slides.
Brilliant, brilliant, fantastic. It's good news.
I'm on my office laptop, and it refuses to let me take it into the sitting room and unplug it. So I'm sitting in my office chair, completely plugged in.
Okay, if we can, Naomi, if you'd like to take us through, or go for the, we'll just hit I and.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. I'll hit I and nothing happens. Wait a second. Enfant.
This is a little poppet that we saw earlier, I think, in the family group, and something is catching her gaze. She looks a little bit less startled on this one. Her arms are not relaxed.
Yeah, no problem.
Can I ask everybody to mute, please, and also mute their and switch off their video? Thank you. Karen.
Yeah, so her arms are not particularly relaxed, but I actually think that looks a good pose for her in this particular case. She's got beautiful big blue eyes, and they're very appealing. So I think this one, although yet again is perhaps a family picture, it's still a lovely image that one can be proud of. I like the fact that the white background has a soft texture about it, so it's not taking anything away from this little lass. And this one I gave 16.
Sorry, can you say it again, Naomi? Was it 18?
16.
16.
Yeah. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, it just broke up for a second.
Oh, right. Yeah. You might get that here, unfortunately.
Life's a long and winding road.
What a wonderful winding pathway through these, leading us to an almost upended teardrop in the trees. I reckon this must have been done for photographers. Who else could it have been done for? It's taken from an excellent viewpoint. You can see all of those twists and turns through the image, all the texture on the trees, and those two figures are in exactly the right place. The photographer has to move themselves across slightly to make sure that we see all the way through, so slightly off the path probably, but it's absolutely the right place to take this picture, and it works really well as a monochrome. 18.
Rock Rose.
Beautiful pattern on this flower, and I like the composition with the water droplets on it. It's fractionally bright, perhaps a little bit over bright on the lighter areas. So there's a little area to the left, and also the top of the I'll call it a stamen. I'm not sure that that's quite called the stamen, that area in the middle, but the pom-pom, shall we say, that's just a fractionally over bright, but we have quite a bit of texture in the petals where they're that little bit darker. So I think probably the fact that it's a bit over bright is what's taking us out of the main detail in this picture. But a little bit of darkening might have brought back texture throughout on the left-hand side as well. But I like the angle, I like the pattern and the dynamic shape, and it's good and sharp. So there's enough depth of field in those fairly tall stamens. 16.
Red squirrel feeding in the heather.
A lovely image of this red squirrel that is well posed on its rotten tree trunk as it eats a nut. I think I might have seen this scene once or twice. I think perhaps from a Scottish workshop. Nothing wrong with that. It's well taken, but I would probably have expected red squirrels to be more in amongst the trees where their food source is. And but this is pictorial. It's a very pictorial image. The heather in the foreground is, of course, very Scottish, and that's probably where the little fellow was taken. Good detail in the fur, and I say I like that out of focus background as well. So it all works very well. Perhaps not quite as natural a setting as I might have liked, but I held it back.
Reflections.
Oh, I thought this was a really intriguing image, and I looked at it for some time because I'm assuming it's a reflection in a mirror or top of a cabinet or something in a museum. It's got that sort of feel. But the photographer has placed themselves in exactly the right place to make this complete circles, complete patterns, and a really good viewpoint. I was quite intrigued looking at that reflection, that it's not a perfect reflection. So I'm assuming that, in fact, this surface, this reflective surface, is actually not quite to the walls, but means that the photographer has had to make sure that they get themselves even more into the right place to make this a perfect circle, and it absolutely is. I don't quite know what is at the base, whether we're looking down through something. I found the little light areas breaking the circles up a bit confusing, mostly because I'm nosy and I like to know what I'm looking at, and in this case I couldn't quite see what it was, but it's perfectly exposed. There's lovely detail, and the photographer has got a good image, and that's 18.
Still life.
Sorry about my clock breaking in there, but I can't stop it, unfortunately. Here, a very different still life, I felt. It's a hard picture, and nothing wrong with that. I liked the textures, and really this one for me is all about those textures. And yet the photographer has managed to keep the shapes of these demijohns, or whatever they are, the jars themselves, and given a contemporary feel to the whole thing. So I liked the fact that we can see the dimples in the base of these two main glasses. There is that third one receding into the background too. And then even the stalk gives it a contemporary feel. And the two fruits, I couldn't quite work out whether they were tomatoes or what they were. It didn't really matter. Quite important that they are red. And for me, the positioning in this frame fairly unusual, but adds to the contemporary feel of it all. And I think it's very much made as well by the blueness of the liquid on the right hand side. 17.
Femme du Peru.
Well, my translation is isn't wonderful, but I don't think there's any doubt that this is a lady of Peru, partly because of her hat and the way she's dressed. I think the photographer has gone in, cropped it well. She's a happy individual. I like the fact that there's all her laughter lines and the wrinkles there, tells of life well lived. And there is quite a bit of detail on that underneath the brim of the hat, but it is shadowing her eyes. And I reckon the detail is there. I think the photographer perhaps just needs to give a little bit of extra time to bringing out the detail in that area, so that we can see just a little bit more of the fun in her eyes. She looks a very happy lady, but I liked the way it's been taken, and I think it's been controlled well in the circumstances. 16.
Morning dew.
Well, of course, photography is about capturing light, and this image does that absolutely wonderfully. Each droplet has texture, and the form that's created on all those strands, all the little pearls of light. There's none of that is burnt out. There's detail within the whole thing, and that texture really shows up. Background really well out of focus, gives us that sense of setting. I like the diagonal way the main areas of this web are going across the image, and then absolutely wonderful that leaf. And I don't think the photographer has put that there. I had a really good look. Doesn't matter whether they have or not. It's in exactly the right place. But I actually think there is web around the base of that leaf, which is backlit and absolutely makes the picture too. So I really enjoyed that one, and I've held it back.
Safe landing.
Good crisp detail in this image. I felt that the soft range of tones, again a fairly limited range of tones, and yet all of the detail in the canopy is really well separated. The sky works well, and then we just have that area of sea. The couple are also in exactly the right place. I don't quite know whether that means they're going to land in the boat. I assume it does. They look a bit of a long way away from it from me, but anyway, it's called Safe Landing, so I don't really know, but I like the way it's been done. And I think the horizon line to me just looks to be a little bit up on the right-hand side. Again, it might be impression, but I did feel it was rising a little bit. Anyway, a good picture, and that's 17.
Similarities.
Well, what a wonderful picture. Really very observant of the photographer. And they say people and their pets can become alike. And it definitely made me chuckle. I'm not sure the lady is very happy. I've got a feeling that it speaks Cuba to me, but I have absolutely no idea. But everything is toned well within, is controlled really well within the tones of this image. We have her skin tones and the textures. We have the building behind, and then we can look through that black doorway just to a hint of what's beyond, and then and the little dog itself. Again, completely different textures, soft, gentle fur, and look at that detail in the eyes. Amazing. And then the little stuck out tongue. Actually, I don't think the lady's tongue is stuck out, but it actually does. I think it's her lips, but it looks so similar. I had a real chuckle. I really enjoyed it, and I think it works extremely well as a monochrome and tells a fabulous story. So yeah, you've guessed it. I've kept it back.
Spoonbill.
Beautifully presented piece of creative work again. It's art, and I think that's been done with sympathy. It works well within the picture, and yet we've kept all of the detail in the bird. There's even a little highlight in the eye, textures in the feathers, and it's a picture that could grace anybody's wall. The simple range of tones also adds to it, and I think the square format, it's not about nature, and yet it is, and it's perfectly taken with full detail in the feathers too. 18.
Suspended.
Well, I decided this was a very interesting way of hanging what I assume is the washing. If I run out of line space, maybe I'll do something similar. The strongly coloured T-shapes really stand out against the more delicate patterns of the other clothing. So I think there's a great contrast there. But I did feel that it's been softened around the edge, and I found that just a wee bit distracting. And then we have this wide white border, which didn't do a lot, kept taking my eye away from the rest of the image. But what it did do was give me a feeling of the old days of Polaroid film, when we used to take the camera out, and once we got the print coming out, you had to wait a little bit and then peel the background off. So I did have a feeling that it had a Polaroid effect, but from the rest of the image, I did struggle, and I did find actually this white border was so distracting. It took my eye out. It was fortunate in some ways that the garment next to the red one is very white too, so that did bring my eye back a bit. But it's something very different, but didn't quite work for me in this format. 13.
Fume.
Well, what a lovely garden with its chimney. I'm assuming that's what it is here. And I get the feeling that perhaps it was the first time it never been lit. So there's a feeling of suspense there. I quite enjoyed the inclusion of the axe in the foreground, because it makes me think, well, they've been away and chopped up the wood ready to put in there. I was a little bit surprised, if you like, at the way the lady is looking. It looks as though she's really surprised that there is smoke coming out of the chimney. So, as I say, that made me feel it was perhaps the first time it had ever been lit. But I couldn't quite understand the message, and so I struggled a little bit with the picture. But what I did find amazing is the way that the smoke is actually surrounding the figures with quite a definite shape around them, and that's presumably the way the movement of the air is there. So it did tell a story, a little bit confusing. Not quite sure what the message was, but maybe it needed to crop in just a wee bit more, or show me perhaps the fire inside, but then of course I wouldn't have seen the faces. So the message didn't quite work for me, and this one got 14.
Morning routine.
A lovely moment that feels almost as though we're intruding into a private bathing moment for this wonderfully backlit hare. The light outlines the head and the ears, and also lights up the hair as it shakes itself to remove the overnight dew from its fur. What a moment to share with this animal against the dark sky. I was a little bit confused about the dark sky. I have to say, it of course shows up the water movement, the droplets as they're shaken out really well. But then the foreground grass is also very light. So as I found that a little bit confusing. So I don't think it's a 100% natural scene, and I'm not sure the water would have been quite like that. But I think it has been portrayed well. We've got lovely detail. I would have liked a tad more detail in the right eye, or rather the animal's left eye, right eye as we look at it. But I did like the way that light is a rim around the ears, and there's good detail there. So an interesting one that got 18.
The candid photographer.
I had to smile at this one too, because I felt that it was, oh, it's under the, isn't it? That's why I can't find it at the moment, sorry. Yeah, the gentleman with his camera that's distorted by the fisheye lens of the person that's actually taking the picture, as well as what looks like a fisheye lens for him. And then the photographer's widow sitting in the chair looking in the seat beyond. Oh, how much longer is he going to be? You know, he's been taking this picture really long enough. So all of that gives a really good moment. I liked the fact as well that the scene is reflected in the one eye that we can see of the sunglasses of the photographer himself. So really strong sky, perhaps a little dominant, but those clouds are also showing in his sunglasses. So I'm sure it was like that, and it gives quite a lot to do, and you can actually see into the camera lens as well, and the whole thing is good and sharp. He looks to have some pretty rough fingernails, so I'm not sure whether he's been, well, I guess he's been a hard-working gentleman by the look of his hands anyway, but the nails, I don't know whether they're bitten or whether it's just hard work, but all of that detail is in there, so it does tell me quite a story. 16.
Southwold Pier digitally restored.
I looked at this quite a long time. It's another picture that has a contemporary feel and is very, very symmetrical. I walked a couple of weeks ago, I walked past Southwold Pier, and I have to say I walked past very quickly because it wasn't like this. It was absolutely crowded. and far too many people for my liking in the recent times. So I didn't stand back and look to see how much of this is just as the building is. So I think, bearing in mind the title, that the photographer has probably done a little bit to make sure that it balances the left-hand side and right-hand side wings possibly, and also that little beach hut that is showing on either side. But it works in that contemporary way. Benefits from the fact that there are no people about, and then there are other little details, like in the top two windows on either side, that one is a warmish colour and the other one is colder colours. So part of it's reality. How much of it is exactly like this, I have no idea, but the picture works from that point of view. I think in this particular case, that really strong blue sky probably fits the image. Would I want to look at it for very long? I'm afraid not. I want something a little bit more, and perhaps it's because I have memories of it being a pretty unpleasant day, to be honest, a few weeks ago, that I find it not quite as appealing as some of the other images. But I think it's clever, and it made me stop and look and to think about the building. And next time I go, I will have a proper look at it. 16.
The last owner used it as a wardrobe.
How much better to have access to a winter scene via the wardrobe, and even have a suitable jacket ready to wear if you want to go out into it. Though I'm not quite sure what that would do for the heating bill. I'm finding the iron and the cleaner a little bit awkward here in this composition. I like the idea. I thought the thought behind it worked quite well. But then I couldn't really understand why the cleaner, I'm assuming it's a cleaner, and the iron have been left there. Perhaps that's just a little bit of reminder of reality. But it also intrudes into the jacket. I think I could have coped perhaps with nothing more than the jacket in this particular scene, and that might have worked slightly better for me. But it's a pristine place. I like the details. The footsteps were a careful thought, but actually, if a person had walked in that way, they would have probably crashed into the into that cleaner as well. So I think there are parts of it that perhaps could be rethought, but the idea is fun and could just be perfected. The winter scene behind has a slightly warm tone about it, and that particularly works. And there's a lot of detail in there. But the whole image, 16.
The death of a boat.
Well, this rotting boat hull it was actually crying out to be photographed. It's real photographer's joy, isn't it? And probably supplied quite a lot of photographs on this expedition. I'm sure I would have enjoyed doing that. I think the foreground works quite well. I think it might have been a little bit over sharpened in that foreground. I think the texture works well on the boat, and that may also have been slightly sharpened, but I think it works well there. And then I looked around the image. We have a very straight horizon line and a very soft sea. And I thought about that behind the boat and also indeed on the foreground. And something doesn't look quite right there. I don't think it's been taken with a heavy ND filter to soften the movement in the sea, or the water, because it doesn't gently go. So if you actually look at the line, there's quite a, and this will contradict myself. I'm trying to say that area of sea that is soft is actually a very strong line against the very sharp area. And I feel that a long exposure would have actually allowed that to ebb and flow a little bit more. So I think the photographer has perhaps done a fair bit of work on the background, and it shows up a little bit too much for me around the boat area. And indeed the sky, there are some really strange dark shapes in the sky at the top. I might be totally wrong, and I hope the photographer forgives me, because the whole idea of this picture I think is absolutely wonderful. I love the simplicity of it. I love the texture of the boat. I just don't feel that the softened background is working quite rightly for me. But I still gave it 17 because a lot of it I do really enjoy.
Iran.
Well done on the pronunciation there. The heron, I think it's spending a quiet moment in the shadow of the reeds, and surprisingly has allowed the photographer to actually get fairly close, which is fairly unusual with them. The fact that it's secreting itself in the shadow has made the exposure really difficult for the photographer on the bird, and also the very bright water and the reeds in the far background. And unfortunately, that really does take my eye away from this wonderful opportunity to see the bird. And yet there are, the feather details are lovely on the neck. The shadow areas are wonderful, but actually the back of the head has unfortunately burnt out absolutely altogether. I think perhaps there might be some detail there. I think perhaps it just needs toning down in the light areas, taking those highlights down a fair amount, and perhaps opening up the shadows a wee bit more to make the heron dominate. As it is, my eye keeps going to the left-hand side to those really light reeds, and I really don't want to see those. So it's a real shame, because it was a lovely moment, and the eye is good and sharp. But this one was 14.
Waiting to be at service.
Really enjoyed the simplicity of this picture and the composition, and the sea. Well, I'm assuming it's sea behind, and the way that the photographer has actually looked at the picture here and given it what would normally be a complicated picture, has actually simplified it. So there's great texture in those hoops. It's a little bit overexposed certainly on the original of this. The zoom has compressed the tones down a little bit, as it has done with quite a few of the other pictures, in fact. And actually in this case to some advantage, because they're not quite as bright as they are on the original. But the sun is catching the top of those hoops and really taking a lot of the detail out, which I think is probably there on the original. I like the way they're set against that sea. The sea is quite light, but it's been given the feeling of a print here. And that huge white border around, I'm sure will look absolutely wonderful as print. But because we've got reflected light here, my eye keeps going out to the sides, going out to that really white border, and not enjoying so much the detail in the picture. And I felt that was a real shame here, because I really loved the simplicity. I really liked the texture. And I actually liked the way the photographer had taken that hoop at the bottom and extended it on the frame. But do we need it? I would crop out all of that white area for a PDI. For a print, of course, something very different, because we don't have reflected light. But I did still give it 17, because I did enjoy the way that the photographer has put this together, as perhaps only a photographer would.
Winter oaks.
Really high key. This time we've got absolutely high key, and this works really well. The composition works. We have the balance of the very strong tree to the left, balanced by the little almost self-image again on the right, and then just enough detail linking the two in this high key production. There's a bit of vignetting around the edge, white vignetting, but I actually think it works in this particular case. Yes, it's a little bit grainy in the sky, but again, I feel it works on this high key image, and I enjoyed looking at it. 18.
Veiled thoughts.
Oh, this was another lovely, delicate portrait of the young lady standing, presumably the original picture, standing at the window, holding that net back, and natural lighting that there is on her. And then the texture of the netting above it, I don't know whether it's net curtain or what it is, doesn't matter. I think in lots of ways it works. I like the way it comes down to the left, holds their eye in, and yet gives detail. And I also like the angles. I did think it was a shame that a fairly strong straight line cuts across her eye, because I think the picture has a lovely delicate feeling. And just for me, the fact that the overlay has just taken away the bit I would have wanted to see of her eye, I think was just a bit of a shame. But I do like the idea, and I think it's been well done, and I gave it 18.
Waiting for the train.
Well, this one brought another smile to my face, because I'm not sure they're really waiting for the train. I think they've had enough of trains all day, and that they're absolutely flat out. They're really, really tired, and enjoying a quiet moment for a Coke break after a hectic day. But for me, the picture is all about the shapes behind, and I think the photographer has shown that really, really well. And it is very much the type of picture a photographer will see, making the most of those shapes. I wasn't sure we needed all of the area below the platform edge. I think I would have lost that. Gone up, we don't really need to know that it's a train. We know it's a station, and the buffer of the train to the left, I'm not sure we needed that in the picture. So I would have cropped in just a wee bit more, but making sure we keep all those lovely shapes. And I also found it's a little bit dull. I think it could have been given a little bit of extra zing just in the post-processing. It's a little bit dark on the corners. I don't know whether it's been vignetted on purpose, but just a tad more exposure, I think, could work really well. And there is the face of the fellow who's not quite looking at us, the one on the right-hand side with the real train hat on, driver's hat or whatever. I hope you got a chance to get a portrait of him, because he's got some really lovely details and textures in his face, and also the necktie all speaks of a day at the railways, and brought a bit of nostalgia. 16.
Youpie.
Oh, well, he's really enjoying having a wheelie there, isn't he? And looking straight at the photographer. So that's caught well. Got good detail in him. Again, we can see his eyes, and I like the fact that there's the dust behind and room for him to go into when he actually comes down to earth. I think we could have made a little bit more of this picture by cropping it. I don't want to crop in too much. I don't want to lose any of the dust at the left, but there's little areas in the light in the woods at the back that I would have lost. We don't need all of those trees, and I think there's been a little bit of work done on the trees in the left, perhaps to hide a much bigger patch, a little bit of a repeated pattern there. So maybe we needed to crop down a little bit more. You couldn't crop down completely, because if we lost all of that light area, we would of course be on top of his helmet, and that would be much too close. So just a fraction, and then maybe a little bit of careful cloning that from amongst the rest of the trees would have added to it. But it's beautifully crisp, loads of detail, well taken of him. Just feels a little bit dark. 16.
Reflet.
there were lovely colours in this bronze droplet, and I was trying to work out what it was, whether it's a light fitting or just a feature in what I think might be a big hotel. Didn't really matter where it was. I thought the detail worked really well in it, and I liked the fact that we could see the shapes below, maybe an escalator going down, but certainly a set of stairs, and then the tables with what looks like 2 plates on each of them. All of that detail comes over really well. Maybe it was in a big shopping centre. I really don't know. And then unfortunately we have this light area to the left. And whilst I don't, you couldn't crop that out completely, I think had it been cropped fairly close to the teardrop edge, perhaps we could have cloned a little bit of darkness into those areas that still remained. Because again, it drags my eye out. It's lighter than any other part of the frame except the writing in the droplet. And I felt that was just a bit of a shame. The person behind, I didn't mind too much. He looked almost as though he was playing a violin, but who knows, he's slightly out of focus. And I think had we not had the light area to the left, it would have been a stronger image. But I did like the idea and the way the photographer had seen this wonderful reflection. And it's got a very metallic feel too, 16.
Now for the final image of the main competition, working hands.
Well, I looked at this for quite some time, and first off thought, wow, they really are working hands, and they look really sore and they look textured. And then I looked when they're flaking the skin, I thought, oh, what is this a hospital type shot, that's showing up an effect. Then I looked behind, and I think the photographer's done absolutely right to keep just a hint of detail of the person. I got the impression it's a child, but I don't know. And then I thought, no, I think this is probably something they've been enjoying, either lots of flour or something that they've been playing with. And it has created this effect of really hard-working hands. I love the way the texture was on the lifelines that are through the picture, and it makes them look slightly popped. So the whole thing looks like sore hands, and I do hope it's not what it looks like, and it is what I think it might have been. But it works really well. Breaks all the rules, 2 strong hands, but the fact that we have just enough detail and dark area to link them to a person behind who actually looks quite happy too, I think really works, and I gave that one 18.
Okay, so we've got 11 held images, and these are they. So I'll just run through them.
Yes.
I'll just run through them once first, and then you can give your scores, unless you want to give the scores straight away.
I can give the scores straight away as long as I can identify the picture, and this one I can say is 19. Yeah, 19.
Cool Hand Luke.
Also 19.
Coffee Time.
20.
Dreaming of the Sea.
Another 20.
GM Under Ice.
20.
Sorry. Big Eater.
19.
Yeah. Great Egret Frozen in Midair.
19.
Let Me Out.
20.
Red Squirrel Feeding in the Heather.
19.
Morning Dew.
20.
Similarities.
20. You just had to be 20.
Okay, so we have, yeah, absolutely. So we have a tie break to deal with, and so if you can tell us, this is Tourist in the Abbey.
Now, I was asked to just place these 1 to 6.
That's right. Yeah, that's absolutely. So
Okay,
it's just this.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's just the 2 that are in the tie break, which is, this is not necessarily, we don't know at this stage whether they're for first, second, third, fourth,
Yeah,
fifth, sixth, or whatever. So just give them 1 and 2, basically, whichever's the higher scorer from your point of view, because it doesn't make any difference.
Okay. Well, in that case, Tourist in the Abbey is 2.
Tenderess.
Sorry,
1.
Tourist in the Abbey should have been 1. I'm going by the numbers I've got, which is 6 and 5. So
okay.
Tenderess is 2, and Tourist
Sorry,
in
is
the
that
Abbey is 1.
Right. So it's Tourist in the Abbey the higher scorer or the lower scorer?
A higher scorer.
The higher.
But actually, both the lowest of all the tie breaks.
No, that's okay. Yeah, that doesn't mean to say that it was. So that's now the competition complete. I won't even, because of IT issues, I will not even try to do a drum roll or anything. But we can actually show the scores as they now stand, as we've gone through the tie break. So that gives us first with Colchester, it's becoming a habit. Wetzlar second, Housestead third, Braintree fourth on the tie break, Oberdan fifth, again on the tie break, and then Pierrefitte. So I thought what we would also do now is, now that we know those, we'll see the those that score, just go through those that scored 20 again, and then we'll look through the winning clubs' images, if that's okay.
Bill, we have to pick best of show.
Oh, my apologies. That's I
Well, if
forgot
you're going to go
to
through the 20s, if you're going to go through the 20s, I can
we
give
can
you
do it that way.
Yeah.
Good. Okie dokie. Okay, so that's coffee time.
These were all stunning. They've all scored 20, so so they all well deserve it. And my choice of the best image for me was therefore a very personal one.
So we'll just, there we go.
And I think was that was the last one, wasn't it? Similarities.
Yep. That
was my personal one. I just I found so much amusement. I thought the photographer had seen this so well, and I just smiled. And anything that brings a smile these days is wonderful. So well done.
Brilliant. Okay. If I'll just run through. Well, actually, Jan, could you just run through who the authors are, or what the clubs and the authors for each of these?
Oh, yeah, that is, oh, hang on. That's Lorraine at Halstead. Sorry.
Lorraine.
I'm not sure that I've got, bear with me, because I wasn't prepared to do all of these, so you will have to bear with me. Was that Dreaming?
For the 20s?
Yeah, that's fine. That's
Dreaming of the Sea.
Well done.
Renata.
Beautiful image.
It is. GM Under Ice, that's Jill Beckett at Halstead.
Well done, Jill.
Thank you.
I'm sure this one is a Colchester from memory. Yes, Jan Cross. Let me out.
Great picture.
Morning Dew. This one, forgive me, I can't remember. I've looked at these so much, I can remember some of them.
That's Wetzlar.
Thank you. Lamar.
Lamar Droid, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, well done.
Glorious picture. Yeah.
And Similarities, which has got the judge's pick, is another one from Colchester, and that's Roy Essery.
Well done, Roy. Fantastic.
Well done.
Well done, Roy. Yeah. Okay. So I thought also I would like to just run through the, before we basically close down, not the session, but just from my point of view, I'll stop the screen share and I'll hand back to Jill. But I thought it would be useful just to, oh look, Colchester's already in the frame. What a surprise that is. I'll just run through it as slideshow. We'll just see the images once again.
I can let you know the names. Robert Farrow, Robert McDonald, Shane Leach, Terry Stone, Kate Jackson, Jan Cross for Let Me Out, Jennifer Brett, Cheryl Wilkes, that's Roy Essery, as we know, Tony Bramley, and Chrissy Alexander.
Okay.
Okay. I'll now stop the share of the images and hand back to Jill.
So if everyone who can would like to restart their videos. And if there is anyone who would like to say anything, say any few words, you're more than welcome to. Is there anyone who'd like to have a say?
Um,
I would
like
one at a time, please. So
You know you would, Vic.
So
let me know.
I certainly heard Vic there.
Yeah, Vic, go on.
Go on then, Vic.
Yeah, just like to sort of thank Halstead once again for putting on this competition. It has got a bit of a habit actually, but it really is great to see, and I do look forward and enjoy these because we do see work from 3 foreign clubs. We know we have a lot to do with Wetzlar, but it's great to see this work. A lot of work goes into putting this competition on, so thank you, Jan, Phil, and Roger, who I guess have been beavering away in the background producing it. So some cracking images this evening, and one more person to thank actually is the lady who sat there pondering over these images. Naomi, thank you very much. As usual, clear, concise comments. We know where you stand with you. You say your piece, but you say tactfully and diplomatically. A difficult job, 64 cracking images, but I think you went through them in pretty good time, and thank you very much.
Okay, and would anybody else like to say anything?
Angela has.
Michael, I've got Michael here and Angela. Okay, Michael first. Welcome, by the way.
Hello, Jill. Yes, big congratulations to the Halstead and District Photographic Society for organising this event tonight and not letting this COVID thing get in the way of us still enjoying all these wonderful photographs. And it's a really great job. And actually, if I got it right, we've got something like, had about 60, just over 60 participants this evening. It's certainly what showed on the list. So that has probably got to be a record, I'd imagine. And I really like the international connection as well. So maybe for another time, you think about trying to bring that in, because it's great to have our friends from across the channel joining. I think that certainly adds to an international feel to it. So well done, and well done to all of the people that contributed towards this. Always excellent photographs and very enjoyable evening. So thank you very much, and well done to Colchester again.
Thank you. Angela, did Angela say she'd like to say something?
Yes, thank you very much. Hope you can hear me.
I can.
Yes, well, Michael has said absolutely everything, really. A very, very well done to the technology department. This was just something special. And I'm sorry my tablet let me down, but I've been in for probably 90% of it since joining on my laptop. And I've enjoyed every photograph and the variety of them. I was amazed last year at the variety of shots, and this year, because you're so much closer up to them, you can see so much more detail. And I think the judging has been really splendid. And what I found quite extraordinary was that I was thinking, and my brain is actually functioning tonight, which is quite good. I was thinking along all the same lines as Naomi. I felt really quite proud of myself and a whole lot more proud of all the beautiful pictures and the judgments that she was making. So thank you very much indeed for a really wonderful evening. And I should also say that Braintree, and I'm the Braintree District Council Chairman, won first prize. Did I get that right?
Not quite.
Not quite. What was number one? Something was number one.
Colchester.
Colchester.
Are you
You've
sure?
got the tie break, Angela.
Ah,
Yeah.
oh, okay. So it was a tie break.
We've got a good fall, which is good for us.
Well, in any case, it was all jolly good, and I really, really amazed at the number of people who go around taking these spectacular photographs. And again, I can't compliment you high enough on the technology. Very, very well done, Halstead Photographic.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to say anything before we wrap up?
Just very quickly. Nick wants to.
Yeah, it's Colchester Mayor, and we won again. We won last year. There's some really fascinating technical points, many of them quite beyond me. And as Naomi explained what she thought should be done to a particular picture to make it even better, I find it very interesting and intriguing trying to keep pace with some of her comments. Such a high standard of pictures, those kept back by Naomi, especially high standards, of course, and one or two of my own favourites. I thought Morning Dew was fantastic. Similarities was fantastic. Anything over 18 was just really high quality. I thought Winter Oaks, that was 18. That was very good. And I thought Reflets, that was only 16, but I thought that was very intriguing anyway. Coffee Time and Dreaming of the Sea, and the pig, Let Me Out of Here. So brilliantly done all the way through. The technology of the production and the quality of the pictures and the interest and the insights of the commentary, all equally laudatory. And well done, Colchester. You did it again. Very, very good. So I'm very proud of you. So what a nice evening this has been. Thanks. Cheers.
Okay. Is there anyone else before I?
Yes, please.
Okay, Rob.
I just wanted to say thank you, Naomi, for your kind words on similarities. Yeah, you're right. It wasn't a tongue. It was taken in Cuba, and I saw that lady talking to another lady, and I just went up to her, showed them a camera, and they were talking, and I didn't want to interrupt, and she just grabbed hold of a dog, picked it up, put it in the basket, and just. Yeah, and I took just 2 images and walked off. So
fabulous,
yeah.
Fabulous. And it was seeing it that's so wonderful. So well done, beautiful picture, and it made me laugh. And
that's good. That's good.
I think that photography is wonderful, and it was technically wonderful as well. But to make me laugh was that reason why it just came a little bit above the rest.
Okay. Anybody else?
Jürgen wants to say something.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, this is Jürgen from Fotofreunde Wetzlar. First of all, I'd like to say a big thank you to the technology department, who really, I think, did a great job today. Also, I think what helped a lot was it looked like you have a particular software that supports you creating this on-screen presentation, so you can type in the marks for every picture immediately. Everyone can see it. You can do certain statistics immediately. So this is the first time, thanks to coronavirus, this is the first time we have the chance to participate in this event from remote, which I found very interesting. A second big thank you goes to the judge, Naomi. I think you did a great job. So, and then of course, congratulations again to Colchester, who beat us by just 2 points, so which is okay. So it was a fair game. So really a serious or seriously meant congratulations to Colchester, and particular congrats to Roy for shooting the best image. There is one question I have to Naomi about image titles, and the question would be how much do image titles influence you when you look at an image? Because I'm asking for a particular reason, because we had the very last image we had in this competition was the two hands, and actually I decided to give it to name it Working Hands, though actually those were the hands of a gymnast, probably having performed on rings or something. So that was the powder they use so that they will not slip off. And so I had the feeling that the title of the image, Working Hands, did mislead you a little bit, like, are these really working hands? Do these look like hands from someone who has really worked hard, maybe on some construction site or whatever? So, and so we had, or I at least had the feeling that in this particular case, the name, the title of the picture was more irritating than helping. And my question would be, in how far does an image title influence, or does it at all influence your assessment, or does it help, or do you totally ignore it and just look at the image? Those would be my questions. Thank you.
The title is quite important, but it doesn't influence how I see the picture. But in that particular case that you mentioned about the working hands, it didn't irritate me at all. But as I was trying to read my way through the pictures, I'd never seen a gymnast's hands before. And I'm really glad that you've told me that it was a gymnast now, because it looked like a young person, yet the hands didn't quite work, you know. So in my own mind, I was trying to understand the picture, whether it was a medical effect, if you like, other than something else that had gone on. So no, it didn't irritate me. In fact, it probably helped me, but also brought the questions that I didn't quite understand. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does. Because for us as non-native speakers, it's always, of course, a bit tricky to come up with titles that are not too obvious. Like if I say a tree in a snowy landscape, it doesn't really add a lot, because it's obvious that it's a tree in a winter landscape. So we're trying to come up with something a little bit more original. Yeah. So, but it is not as easy for us non-native, of course. But today I learned that probably the image titles don't necessarily have to be in English.
No, they don't. No, they don't.
No, absolutely not. And
I think it compromises a little bit the anonymity of pictures, of course. But okay, that should not matter in the judgment anyway. So we will try to come up with decent English titles also in future.
That really doesn't influence me, and I was quite happy. There were quite a lot of French titles. I can just about recognise most French. I can't speak it very well, but I can read it reasonably well. So that didn't affect me at all. And in fact, English people put French titles, you know. So that really doesn't matter. I only really find that a title makes a difference if I'm a little bit confused with a picture, and then it can perhaps just nudge me in the direction that I need to see it as. But most of the time, the title doesn't affect it at all. In fact, I sometimes think titles are completely wrong for the image that's portrayed. But I wouldn't mark it any different. I don't mark the titles. I use them to help me when I'm a little bit confused, as I was with the hands.
Thank you very much, Naomi. Thank you.
Anyone else who'd like to say anything? I'm just looking around. I've got a couple of things just to say before I hand over to Steve to actually thank Naomi again, because you've done a marvellous job, Naomi. I'm going to start by saying I made some notes before I started, and on my notes it says, congratulations to Colchester for winning yet again. I knew you were going to do it, guys.
Is that because you knew the pictures?
No, it's just because I know Colchester have such good photographers. So yeah, say that the other clubs don't, because they do. So yes, I'd already picked up on that one. Just before I hand you over to Housted's Vice Chairman, Steve, to do the parting words, I have a couple of thanks to do myself. One is to three people within the Housted Club. One is to Roger, who handles all our stuff on YouTube and does a marvellous job of keeping us grounded in our technology. Without him, I don't know what we would do. So thank you, Roger. The second one is to Jan. This thing doesn't happen without an awful lot of work going on in the background. And Jan has been working mad over the last few weeks to get this all put together and run. So thank you very much, Jan, for all your hard work. And finally, also to Phil, because Phil has just done so much. I mean, without him, the technology just wouldn't have worked. And he's worked so hard on everything. So thank you very much, Phil. All three of you done a brilliant job.
Well done, Phil.
So with that, I will stop talking now and hand you across to Steve Thompson to say the final words. Are you there, Steve?
I am. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yep.
Well, there's one problem about preparing your closing speech before everyone else has spoken, and that there's really nothing left to say that hasn't already been said. So forgive me for the repetition. So, Madam Chairman, honoured dignitaries, sponsors, special guests, esteemed judge, members, colleagues and visitors from Oberdin, Pierrefitte and Wetzlar. Damen und Herren, Mesdames et Messieurs, ladies and gentlemen, merci, danke, and thank you for taking the time to attend our 2020 virtual Twin Towns competition. First and foremost, and it sticks in the claw to say it, congratulations to Colchester for your winning tonight. There have so far been very few silver linings to the cloud that is COVID-19 pandemic. And it's easy to become despondent. But we have to remain optimistic and continue with our lives, and that includes our hobbies. So I offer you this small compensation. Never before has it been so easy to join meetings and competitions hosted by other camera clubs, especially those far from home. And so it proved tonight, with our European friends and other visitors on Zoom and on our YouTube channel. We easily outnumbered all previous year's attendees. So give yourselves a slap on the back. But of course, a very special thanks to our judge tonight. The erudite, the accomplished, the articulate Naomi Saul, well qualified with a ARPS and a DPAG, a membership of the Fédération Internationale de l'Art Photographique. She is also an associate of the Society of the International Nature and Wildlife Photographers. Madam Judge, your critiques were observant and constructive, and your marking bold and well deserved. So, Damen und Herren, Mesdames et Messieurs, ladies and gentlemen, please show Naomi your appreciation with some whistles, with some whoops, and a rousing round of applause. Naomi's full.
Thank you, Stephen. And thank you to all of you for giving me such a wonderful job. The pictures were really exciting. I enjoyed looking at all of them. And as you say, in these difficult times, actually being able to see some work still is what keeps us going, isn't it?
Indeed. I too would like to add a special thanks for the Housted members who made this online competition possible. To Jan Bond, our absolutely delightful competition secretary. To Roger Cuthbert and Phil Wiseman for their phenomenal technical input. For Ruth, for the posters, for Susan for the administration, and for Brian Fleming, who every year makes and sends out the CDs of the competition images. May we express our gratitude to the rank and file members of all 6 clubs who have taken the trouble to create, to edit, and then expose their images to the cruel light of public gaze, and then open them to the judges' forensic criticism. And not just for those who were selected to represent their clubs tonight, but to all the members of the 6 societies for their ongoing passion in the pursuit of that perfect image. I leave you tonight with the hope that at next year's Twin Towns competition, we'll be drinking alcohol and not rubbing it into our hands. That all our masks will be of the Photoshop variety, and that we will meet in person again, and we'll shake hands and not bang elbows, and that we will hug, kiss, and enjoy some lovely food and wine together. So on behalf of Housted and District Photographic Society, bonsoir, guten Abend, and good evening. We wish you the very best of health for the coming months. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thanks for everything. Bye.
Good to see you, Walter.
Bye.
Good to see you, Jürgen.
Good to see you. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
We should repeat this one.
Yeah, yes, you're right. We should do it again. Yes. Yeah.
Because it's really easy. So and it
yeah,
works.
yeah, it's
Works
simple.
good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bye, Walter.
Bye bye, everybody.
Okay.
Bye.
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 I'll email you in the morning, Jürgen.
Yeah, yeah.